Good morning, everybody. I'm Crystal, and I am here with Ian today, and we are going to be hosting our What's New in Syncro webinar. Um, so we are going to do kind of what we've done in the past and just show you all of the amazing things that we have released in the last about 6 weeks or so. Feel free if you have questions. Both Ian and I will be looking at, I've got it up on a different screen, and we'll be looking at chat as well as Q&A, so you can put any questions you have there. And then we'll try to get through all of those at the end. So again, we really love doing these. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I think to start out, I'm going to hand it over to Ian, and he's going to start chatting. I just got that I was kind of cutting out a little bit. Is everybody getting that?
You're good for me.
Okay.
Yeah, you might
Okay.
need to give me some kind of permission to turn my video on. I don't know.
Oh,
Never seen that before on Zoom. Anyway, I will go ahead and start in the meantime. How's it going, everybody? This is Ian, Chief Operating Officer and co-founder here at Syncro, and super excited for another edition of this What's New in Syncro webinar, which is always a lot of fun. So yeah, cool. All right, video's working now. So the first thing we're going to show you is single customer permissions. And just for those of you who have never been in this type of webinar before, what we generally do is show you everything that we've released since the last time we did the webinar. So this is only really like a month's worth of stuff. So single customer permissions is great. The use case here is oftentimes you might have a client and they might have their own internal IT person that doesn't handle all the IT, but they do some of it. And so often they want access to the RMM or something like that, some part of the MSP platform, so that they can do stuff on their own when they need to, that they do know how to do. This is usually a revenue generating thing for you. So you can actually charge them a premium for this license. So we made a thing called single customer permissions. What it enables you to do is create a security group that gives them access to only a single customer, which Crystal's showing now, and then it allows you to say what they can and can't do. So this is a limited subset of the normal security group features that you're used to with your normal techs. So they can view and edit tickets, things like that. They can see the RMM alerts. They can run scripts if you want them to be able to. They can remote into their own machines. They can view assets, but they can only do that with their customer record. So they can't see any of the other stuff. And they also, of course, can't change your account settings and things like that. So this is really cool. For those of you that aren't doing this, you should when it applies, because you can charge money for it. So it's a good thing. So that is single customer permissions. I should also say that if you guys have questions at any point, you can put them in either the chat box or the Q&A box, and we will both be looking at that. And when there's a good stopping point, we'll answer whatever questions you might have. And at the end, we'll definitely do a Q&A as well. So the next thing is Syncro Live Service Manager. So this was pretty much everything we release is highly requested. So this was very highly requested. It's pretty obvious what it does. It basically allows you to start and stop services and filter through them within Syncro Live on a machine. So we released that. Those of you, I'll just say it up front because you're going to ask, when are we going to be able to monitor services? We're working on it, so you will be able to do that. Okay, next, WebRoot. So we released a WebRoot integration, which is awesome. It took way longer than we thought it was going to, but it's finally available. So you now have a choice of Bitdefender, MCSoft, and WebRoot. I know you're all very opinionated about which AV is the best and stuff, but we're remaining neutral. They're all fine and whatever. They're not perfect. So with the WebRoot integration, it works very similar to the Bitdefender one. We can help you migrate if you have an existing WebRoot account. We can help you migrate your existing WebRoot account over to Syncro so you can keep all your assets and everything. And we have a whole fancy migration wizard that allows you to map things to customers and assets, which is really nice. So that process is pretty smooth. So you shouldn't have to do much work if you're already using Webroot. If you aren't using Webroot, we can help you create an account and then integrate it with Syncro. Once you do that, it will show up in your policies. You'll be able to choose which AV, and one of them will be Webroot, and you can pick a policy to apply. Webroot has its own online dashboard that you can log in, configure stuff. It's very easy to do. Once you've configured like your policies for Webroot and stuff, those get pulled into Syncro. You can just pick which policy you want to apply in your Syncro policy. So pretty straightforward. It works well. It's $1 a month in endpoint flat. So real simple, easy pricing. Same as MCSoft. So yeah, cool. Crystal, over to you.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I'm really excited about this one. We released this a couple weeks ago. So there's a couple, I'm just gonna kind of go through the full aspect of it because there's a few things to it. So first, I'm just gonna go into a policy so you can kind of take a look at where you find the settings. So we've added to the Syncro RMM agent an agent contact form. So you might be already familiar with the system tray icon that was already really awesome. You could add a ton of things to it to that right click. So when you add things here, we updated this so it was a little bit more clear as to what you were adding to that right click. But one of the things we added was this agent contact form. So it doesn't open up the web browser. It's a nice little module that you can actually you can customize this in a really nice way. So I'll kind of show you that too. So you can add that. It's called an agent contact form. You can create as many of these as you want. So a common use case, I loved this idea, is you could have an agent contact form that was maybe during office hours, request or create a ticket. And then you could have another one that was outside of office hours, or maybe an emergency thing that would then it would take on the settings of the form policy and act accordingly. So this is where you enable it on a policy level. But what's really cool is if you head over here, just like the other policy modules, we now have an agent contact form here. So you can create these just like you would Windows Application Patch Management and third party. So you can create as many of these form policies as you want. So I'll just go into one so you can kind of take a look. So you can, of course, call it what you want. It can have a form title. And then this is where I'm saying you can customize what the form body says. And even if they submit it and it's successful, you can even customize like, hey, thanks for your request and all of those things. You can choose what required fields you want. They can even take a screen capture. So that's added. It uploads right to the ticket so you can take a look at their screen. So this is just a huge new feature that we added in, and it's got a lot of awesome qualities. The other thing is that on the back end, this isn't customer facing, but you can choose if a ticket came in, like if it was like that off hours or something like that, you could create an issue type for off hours support and have it possibly take on some ticket automations to react in a different way on your end. So there's just a lot of really neat things you can do with that. And then from an actual endpoint standpoint, I've got this remote desktop connection opened up and I think it's applied to here. So if I just use the system tray icon, and I believe it's the submit ticket one. See, it's this awesome little modal. So instead of it popping out into a web browser, you can just fill out, your customers can fill out to submit a ticket from here. That's what it looks like for them. You can use your own logo. You can actually upload a different one. So we got really granular with the different settings here. So this is awesome. This is one of my favorite new things that we've released, and definitely highly, highly requested. So very cool. Okay, cool. Let's go over the other thing that was awesome and a huge time saver. If you head over to your documentation center, you'll see that if you create a new page now, you have the option. You've always been able to create like an internal or a customer portal type page, but now we have templates. So you can, if you just did this, you could start and create a new template from here. But before this, I just was like, I'll just create one really quickly. So you can apply a specific template and it's here, and then you can just fill out the information. So this is just a really nice quality of life improvement and super helpful. Let's see, while I'm in here, maybe since I'm in the documentation center, I'll just show you this as well. I'm going to go to a different page here, but we added credentials, and this is also pretty huge. So I'll just go into like an example. If you have an existing documentation page, if you just edit it, you can actually add credentials to an existing documentation page. So you can then choose if you want it to be internal only, but you can share these on their customer portal. So this is kind of a huge one. So again, obviously we have custom fields that you can create that are encrypted, but those are internal only. You can't pass encrypted custom fields to your customer, whereas credentials, this is how you can do this now within Syncro. So it's pretty huge. So this is one way that you can create credentials. The other way is that if it's not necessarily attached to a documentation page, if I go to just an actual customer, you can see now we have credentials here. So you can create them, and again, you have the ability to make them either public or private, and if you do create them that it's viewable on their customer portal, they can just log into their portal and view those credentials. So this is also just a really large feature, so I kind of want to be detailed in this because there's a lot to it. The other part of this is that since we added also different permission levels of the customer portal, you can now choose if someone has access to these credentials or they don't. So you'll see like it's now added to this portal user permission groups as well, which is huge. And then the other really cool thing that I thought was awesome is in reports, in your employee reports, you now have a credential asset report. So now you can see anytime a technician accesses those credentials, you can see it. So huge, awesome feature. Let's see, what's the other thing I've got on my list here? Payment profiles. Oh, okay. So I don't have a payment like a gateway integrated with this demo account, but I'll just show you essentially what it's going to do. You now have the ability I think it's going to be in your invoices settings. You can now set up reminders if a payment profile was about to expire. So it's like an added thing. Once you have a payment like a gateway integrated, you'll now have the option to set up reminders if you have an expiration like 30 days out or something like that. So really cool there. All right. Ian's turn.
Okay. Right. Password vault. This is small, but like makes me happy. You can now change your password vault passphrase. So before, when you made a password vault passphrase, you couldn't change it, and we had to tell people like write down your password vault passphrase, which is still true, but at least now you can change it. So if you have an employee that leaves, you're already protected because they have to log into Syncro in order to even use the password vault. But now, just for safe measure, you can also change your password vault passphrase. So that's nice, and helps because a lot of people submit support tickets for that. So we appreciate that we released that. So now you don't have to message us. Okay, recurring invoice improvements. So in a recurring invoice, I'll wait till Crystal gets there. Perfect. So you can now choose to charge your clients on the recurring invoice date rather than, or the due date rather than the date the recurring invoice was generated. So before, you would generate a recurring invoice and you'd either bill them on that date and that was it, or you would check like don't bill them basically, and then you'd bill them manually because you wanted them to have time to look at the invoice or for you to look at the invoice and make sure it was good. So now if you wanted to, you could say make the due date 30 days later. You have 30 days, you and your client now have 30 days to review it, make sure everything is right, and then it'll auto charge the credit card on file when it's actually due. So it just gives you more flexibility there, which is really nice. In addition to that, we made another improvement to recurring invoices. There was in a couple scenarios where you might have a recurring invoice, and just as an example, there's this like add any pending ticket charges checkbox. So some people might have a recurring invoice and they don't actually do, and they have the add any pending ticket charges checked and nothing else in the line items. So any jobs they do during that month, they would be charging their clients for. But maybe one month you don't do anything for your client And so an invoice is generated that doesn't have any line items in it. And so you like send them a $0 invoice, which is just kind of silly and like maybe just is messy. So we now have a checkbox that says allow generation of blank invoices. So you can uncheck that if you want to, and then if ever there is a $0 invoice, it just won't get created, which is nice. A lot of people ask for that, even though it's a small thing. Okay, next is on the estimates page. This is a quality of life thing. There's now an advanced search at the top, and this allows you to filter by a lot of different things, such as the status or the customer or the date, which is really nice and allows you to kind of sift through your estimates a lot more quickly. Yeah, Crystal, over to you.
Awesome. Okay, so a few other things. Again, like it's crazy because Ian and I were talking about this stuff that is on this list today, and there are so many things that in some ways are, oh, you're like, oh, this is really quick to show, and then we're like, oh my gosh, it has a huge impact. So a few of these ones that I'm going to kind of go through right now are one of those that are like quality of life that just really can end at the end of the day save you a ton of time. So you've always been able to customize this page, but we've added even more things to these table columns. So I mean, this was already like a very granular list, but if I'm looking at my list here because I want to show you where it starts, but essentially it's like a huge amount of new things that we just added here. As you can see, it's a huge list just in general, but I believe like all of these ones are new. It's like I think it's actually from here all the way down to this one. These are all brand new that we added to these columns. So this is super helpful. And this was another thing that was very much highly requested as well. So now you can customize those columns even further. In addition to that, again, another highly requested thing, if you head over into your leads module, we now have added the ability, if something comes in, you can just quickly mark that as spam now. Just straight from here. So that's, again, one of those just quick and easy, but super quality of life type of improvement. Ian touched on this before. WebRoot was a huge release for us, and we have even just since we released it made it even hopefully just more of an ease of use for you all when you're going through that process of, you know, deciding if you want to transfer the account. There's now, it's a lot more seamless. And so if you have questions in the meantime, it's easier to go back, ask questions before you finally submit that request. So we just kind of continue to make that easier and more efficient for you as well. Another thing we added, let me just go to a ticket here really quick. I'll just go to, I think I wrote one down that if I know has one on there. But if you go to a ticket that has a worksheet that's attached to the ticket, now you can see, like, if you try to go and you try to delete this, before this update, you could just delete this worksheet. You hit delete on accident, maybe you wanted to edit it and it's gone. So now it's gonna pop up and say, are you sure you wanna do that? So this is kind of, again, just so things don't just all of a sudden disappear on you. You can take a second look on what you actually selected. So that's nice. And well, I'll show you this. If you go to contracts, we've added, so you can, if you have a ton of contracts here, you can filter by the estimated value. But now we've improved that. And then also, if you have, it also supports non-entirely numerical currencies. So it will now sort for if you have a different locale than the US, for example, it will accurately filter those. Let's see here. Oh, and then lastly, another super big quality of life thing that was requested a ton is that you can now filter invoices by customer name, so that you can make them alphabetical and go. So it's going to go by the last name. So you can filter those now really easily. So yeah, another awesome thing that we added there. I think that might be the last one on my list. And so now it's nice, we'll have a good amount of time to kind of go through some questions, and feel free, again, I know Ian mentioned it too, but I see some questions coming in either the chat or the Q&A, so go ahead and just keep those coming and we'll try to get through those.
Cool. It's worth mentioning, before we start answering some questions, all this stuff that we released is all based on your feedback. So keep giving us feedback and we'll keep building things. And we enjoy doing that. We have a lot of really big stuff in the works and we'll be sharing that stuff with you as it's available. There's already some questions here. Crystal, do you want to take any of them in particular?
Sure, I'm looking at the chat box ones. The question was, can you set a user to work with a couple customers? So currently that feature that we just talked about, it's setting, and it is primarily for that internal IT situation. So you're only right now available to set them to one customer. So you couldn't say this technician can only see these 2 customers or these 3 customers. So it doesn't function like that. And then just piggybacking off of that question, the question is, does the single customer permissions cost an additional monthly fee? And yes, it's the same as an actual user, and kind of as Ian mentioned, it is also a huge revenue builder for you. So you can charge, of course, your customer to allow them that availability as well. If you see any, Ian, you can just jump in. I haven't read any other ones yet.
Cool. I see one here. In the assets in RMM, is there a way to tell who is logged into a specific computer if there are multiple users that are able to log into said computer? Yeah, there's like a record that goes on the asset. So Crystal, I think if you go to that first one that's online, yeah. And then if you scroll down to recent activity, so you can see our user account is called demo engineer, but that could be Bill or Nancy or whatever, and you would see the person's name started a Syncro live session for a particular asset. So yeah, you can see that there. Let's see here. Will Malwarebytes be available to purchase through Syncro? Not currently. We built that integration with them, and yeah, that's not. You don't purchase any licenses through us. You still get them from Malwarebytes. I would say we don't have enough requests right now for that to really warrant building it. So if that's something you really want, you're welcome to submit a feature request for it. Yeah, but we're not currently working on that, no.
Question just about any other integrations for remote access. We actually do have integrations with both Screen Connect and TeamViewer, and you can find those in the App Center, and they're both really great integrations as well.
Yeah, and to add to that, we're constantly improving Syncro Live. If I had to give it a version number, it's probably gonna get to version 1. It doesn't have a version number, so I'm making this up. But because of some of the recent improvements we're working on, I would say it's about to be version 1.5 or something. And then we have a bunch more that we want to release, and then maybe it'll be 2.0. So there are a lot of new improvements, both for stability and speed, and then also for just being functionality, just being able to do new things. So lots being worked on there.
One of the questions was password vault versus credentials, and just kind of understanding the difference. So really good question. I think the main thing, and Ian, if you have more to add to this, the main difference is when you set up passwords and encrypted fields using the password vault, you cannot share those with your customers. So there's no way to pass those through to the portal. So it is internal only. Anything held in the password vault is internal only, whereas credentials is something that you can pass to your customers. Is that the main difference?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, we made the password vault a long time ago, and it uses OpenPGP encryption, and it's secure to a fault. It's so insanely secure that from a technology perspective, I don't think there's a way for us to enable you to share those passwords with people. Yeah, they would basically need your password vault password in order to do that, and that's clearly an issue. And so we made masked credentials. It's still very, very, very secure, but it's a little more flexible in the way that it's built. So yeah. Question here from Frederick. I would like to see the ability to make an invoice draft so the invoice is not published until we're ready. Right. Okay. I got it. So in accounting, this is kind of called a proven post. We have gotten some requests for it, and I'm aware of it. And yeah, it would basically work where you'd have a status for invoices that's draft, and then when you're ready, you can publish them. We are aware of that. It's probably not going to happen super soon, but it is a thing people have asked for. So I think there's already like a spec written for it, and it's not requested as often as a lot of the other things we have, such as like service monitoring, for example. So it's been pushed back, but we probably will do it eventually.
One question I see, and I see it's been asked twice, but also in conjunction with another one. Will Syncro Live get a UI or UX update? So as Ian mentioned, we're constantly improving Syncro Live. So I think that's going to be something that we'll continuously see improvement. And I mean, just Services Manager being one of them. We just released that a couple weeks ago. So we are continuing to add updates there. And then the follow-up question and another question that was asked is that if we'll have a roadmap that's available to the public. So currently it is private right now internally to our company. We release things so quickly, and things, I mean, we're taking requests all the time, and we have literally magicians that create this roadmap. And I think that if we had someone to try to keep this public and up to date, it would take like an entire new employee to do that. But I mean, nothing's private. Like if you have questions, I mean, these webinars are great, and Ian has a really great insight on what's coming and how soon and that sort of thing too. What else?
We got a question here. Are you working on Rocket Cyber integration? I think there's already a Rocket Cyber integration on the Rocket Cyber side. They when they launched, we were their first integration. So I think on their end there's an integration. I don't know much about it, honestly. We've met the founders at a bunch of conferences. So that's why that happened. But yeah. Let's see. There's a lot of them. I'm trying to figure out where I left off. Any official date on being HIPAA compliant? We are working every day on the HIPAA compliant stuff. For those of you that don't know, we're basically working towards being able to sign a BAA. A lot of it is just kind of paperwork stuff. It's not, I don't think we've made any changes to our security as a process of that. We already adhere to a lot of the industry standards. But being able to sign BAAs, there's like a lot of random, I don't know. It's like you have to basically write a bunch of procedures, even if they don't really apply to you. So there's a lot of stuff about like data warehousing and things like that that don't apply to us because we don't host our own data. It's done through Heroku, but we still have to do a bunch of paperwork anyway. So we are working on that. And then obviously everybody has like different BAAs. So we have to have a system for taking in a BAA, reading it efficiently, and then being able to sign it for people. There's just a lot of random busy work that's associated with it that I think it's not just about being HIPAA compliant. It's about having a streamlined system. So we're working on that. Our goal is to be done with that and be able to sign BAAs by the end of the year, if not sooner. And it is moving. So I don't have a date because it's like not the type of work that you can really know when that'll be. We're working with a lot of experts on it, and based on what they say, that's what we do. So yeah, I know that's a little squishy, but it's kind of the best I can do.
Okay, is there a dashboard where you can see daily ticket status for your technicians? So Dan, I would just want to show you this and see if this is what you're kind of referring to. You can go to your main tickets page and do an open ticket dashboard. This doesn't require a logged in, like you don't have to be logged into that monitor either. You could manage dashboard shared links and things like that, and you could customize the way that this looks. So you can kind of have that up in a monitor in your office. So hopefully that answers your question. Let me know if I'm not answering that properly. The next question, can you show how to send an automatic reminder for past due invoices? I believe you can set those up straight from your admin section in the invoices. I think I just was looking at this. I think invoice reminders. I think this is where you can set up a new open invoice reminder and say, hey, yeah, yep. You can say, hey, you're 5 minutes past due. Pay me some money. So you can do that here with the invoice auto reminders. Let's see. Invoicing, will you be able to specify due dates for reoccurring invoice? I always have an invoice due on the 1st and have the invoice generated to match the terms. Yeah, I think that actually, I'm fairly, oh, is that the charge card on file one instead, Ian, where it charges the card on the day that it's due?
Yeah, when I read that question, it seemed like what we just released solves that, but I could be wrong.
I thought is yeah, if it's like you want to send the invoice and then actually charge the card on the due date, but either way, like you can have on a reoccurring invoice, you can have it generate on the 1st. So if I just go into a reoccurring invoice here, you can have it generate on the 1st, and then you can now have specific invoice terms attached to the reoccurring invoice. So if it generates on the 1st, but it's due on the 15th, for example. So if it's not regarding the automatic charging of a credit card, yes, you can add billing terms to a reoccurring invoice. If it is regarding credit cards, you now will have additional options where it says either charge on generation date or charge on the due date. So either way, I think we can manage that.
Nice. Here's one from Matthew. Screen preview for Syncro Live so you can see if a customer is using a device. You want to show them the tooltip where they see the screenshot?
Oh, yeah.
So Matthew, if you go to the assets and RMM page and you go down to any of these, if a device is online and you click the magnifying glass, there's actually a screenshot there, and it's really low res, so you can't read anything, and it only gets updated I think once every 30 seconds or 45 seconds or something. So it's not like a live view, but it does give you an idea of like, do they have windows open and things like that. So you can kind of see if they're using it or not. Does that, I bet that answers what you're looking for, but let me know if it doesn't.
Cool. I'm seeing a few feature requests too, just regarding credentials and maybe different ways to organize them and things like that. So um, just wanted to let you know that I definitely am seeing those, and we will kind of bring those up to the team. Those feature requests are always really valuable. Any feature that we release, we want to make sure that it's usable. And let's see here, because there was a couple
I
of
see
those.
one, I see a feature request from Jeremy about prepaid hours. Um, we have a prepaid hours module. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. That's why I'm bringing it up. So we have a prepaid hours module that you go and turn on in the admin settings. Maybe you can show them where to turn that on. And what that does is it enables on the customer record, sorry, the customer detail page. You can then see how many prepay hours they have. You also can create an inventory item called prepay hours where they can like pay you for prepay hours. So yeah, it's enabled a prepay hours tracking feature there. There's a whole knowledge base article about it and everything. You can use this in recurring invoices. So if your business model is you get 10 hours a month and they don't roll over or whatever, all of that you can do with Syncro. I don't know, Jeremy, if you already knew that and what you're asking for is like an additional feature request. Based on your question, I think you can do it, but maybe you can elaborate and that'll help.
Yeah, I think I might have had that feature request before or seen this one where because prepaid hours will deduct anything with a labor category. So I think the request is that if they have 5 hours of remote support labor, but like no on-site labor, that it would only deduct from that specific labor type. So right now that I believe that is an active feature request, and if you
Right.
submitted it to the team,
Prepay
that's
hour
the best way to do it.
buckets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that one. Yeah. Question here from Gabe. Is it possible to link the customer request form to a desktop icon? It's so funny. We had that in Kabuto. Yes. If you knew what the right thing to make the shortcut go to was, yes, you could do that. I don't know it off the top of my head, but maybe send us a ticket and we can probably help you with that.
I think I saw someone wrote a script to do that actually, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Question here from Scott. There have been some significant security incidents in the past few months involving MSPs. The worst of these has been ransomware infections that were spread through an RMM to many customers. What can you tell us about work being done to increase the security of Syncro? Okay, great question. I'm glad you asked. We've been doing a lot, actually. We're part of some industry groups with other MSP platforms, including a lot of our competitors that have been compromised. And so we discuss things with them and are sharing like ways that people get compromised. We've talked to quite a few folks around the space to learn more. We haven't been compromised, so that's why like we're trying to stay ahead of that and make it so we don't. From what we've learned, the majority of the compromises that have happened so far are because two-factor authentication wasn't turned on and someone gained credentials to the MSP's platform and then basically wrote a script, deployed it on all the endpoints to install ransomware, right? So that's why we recently started forcing multi-factor authentication in Syncro, because that is the number one vector where this is happening. So that should be solved to a certain extent, right? You're never 100%. But then we've also added a bunch of other things. So there's now email notifications, for example, when someone logs in with a new IP address, so that you have more awareness there. We are working on we get audited on a regular basis. I shouldn't say audited. Basically, we pay bounty hunters a lot of money all the time whenever they find anything. And so security experts are basically constantly trying to find vulnerabilities in our system. And you guys know how that kind of thing works. In the past, they found some kind of big stuff, and we patch that, and then they keep going, and they find smaller and smaller things. They find some things every once in a while that are like really kind of, I don't know if we should even pay them for this, but we do. And then we fix the thing, even though they're kind of minuscule. And so we feel that's better than like getting a one-time audit or something. Like I could give you a stamp on a piece of paper and you'd be like, all right, you got a stamp, but that's like a one-time audit and stuff happens all the time, right? We discover new exploits. I get like a weekly letter from the government or whatever about like new exploits that are discovered. And it's like, if we get a one-time audit, it doesn't matter. So we're constantly getting audited essentially. We're doing a lot there. We're working on some pretty cool stuff that might prevent, even if they get in with multi-factor authentication and they have your password, we're like thinking about some cool things there that we could do to prevent the spread of ransomware and those kinds of things. So we're doing a lot of things there, like for many reasons. Number one, it's the right thing to do. We don't want people to get compromised. Number two, we want you to be happy. And number three, it's really bad for us if we get hacked. It's like reduces trust in a lot of ways, right? So it's in our best interest and yours and your clients for us to be really secure. So we do a lot there on that. And then it would be a little disingenuous to be like nothing will ever happen because like no one's 100% secure, but we're doing everything we possibly can. So yeah, hopefully nothing ever happens and it stays this way.
Awesome. Okay. One thing I was going to show for Rob, it's scheduling Windows updates at a specific time. So I'm going to make sure I show you this. Hopefully it kind of answers your questions there on kind of how to handle that. If you go to policy modules and Windows updates, you can get pretty granular with Windows categories. So if we just create a new one here, you can specify. So you can say, I want these specific categories to patch at a specific time. So if it's like feature packs and not critical updates, because that doesn't make sense what I'm doing. Feature packs and definition updates, for example. Like maybe you want them to start at a specific time. You can say, I actually only want them to patch monthly, and it's like the fourth Friday of the month at midnight or something like that. Like you can very specifically decide when you want those Windows patches to push through. And then if they do require a reboot, you can even select how you want Syncro to handle those. So that's kind of the best way, is scheduling those categories ahead of time, because if I'm reading you correctly, currently, if you're looking at just like an actual asset that might have missing patches, for example, you can't necessarily schedule. So from here, if you look at the missing patches here, if you hit install, it's going to install it when you hit install. I think the question might have been being able to schedule these ones. So if that's the question, currently you can't really set a date and time for those to install. But if you can manage it prior to that from the policy, that's kind of the best case scenario. And then the other thing, time added to the labor log is not real time to customer like it is in communications section. This creates a problem if you add time to the labor log. Customer never gets a notification that any work has been done. Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, just so I can understand if this is a feature request or not, I'll just kind of grab a ticket really quickly here. So you're saying unless you log time in the communications here, your customers don't really get notified if there's been time added. That's interesting. Okay, so you'd want them to get like an email every time labor's been added to the ticket. I think that's what I'm hearing. Interesting. Okay. Let's see here. What else do we got? Seems to be flat. Okay. I think there's like follow-up ones that maybe I'm not privy to where they started. Let's see here.
I got one here from Bruce.
Okay.
Could you add prepaid dollars in addition to prepaid hours? Yeah, essentially you do that with the deposit feature. So there's a feature in the inventory where you can make an item that's a deposit. It's like somebody, well, they're putting in a deposit, but it's basically prepaying for something, right? So that's how you would do that. And then you would see it on their account as a credit.
Sweet. I've got a question here, and hey Ryan, and it says, is there ability to run a script on a custom search? So yes, if you go to assets and RMM, that like a device has been on for more than 5 days, run a reboot script. Let me look here. I know that you can definitely do things if it hasn't checked in for a certain amount of time, but Ian, can you think of how on a custom search you could see if it's been on for that long? Like if it's been on for 5 days straight?
If it's been on for 5 days straight.
Can you reboot it?
Right. There's a. Do we gather this? I know this because I used to fix computers, but there's a last boot time field.
Oh
Do
yeah.
we have last boot time in here? I don't remember.
Yeah,
Random.
I believe we do. I think it's in one of these. And then if that was the case,
Last boot, right there.
last boot.
Right. So
Okay.
it's in there, and so by using last boot, you could figure out if it's been on for more than 5 days.
Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily in the saved search, but if it needed what I was going to show you, if it needed to to actually be rebooted, you can mass select. If it's based upon just a search from here, it's a little bit more cumbersome just because you have to like look through them. But if it's something you can create in the saved asset search, you can just grab those devices, and then once you select those devices, you can go to manage and you can run a script. And yes, the reboot script is an option for there.
There is, so if you go to the save search and you create a new one.
Yeah.
If you go under asset custom text field, you see the asset custom text field checkbox in the bottom right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't, or
This
not
one?
the checkbox one, the custom text
Oh, this
one.
one. Got
Yeah.
it. Sorry.
I don't know why this is in here, but last boot is in there.
Oh.
And I guess is doesn't really help. But when, we'll probably eventually improve this whole thing so you can do like and or greater than or whatever. And once we do that, last boot is in there, so we could probably, I don't know, eventually do something with that.
Yeah, cool. But to answer your question, yes, you can run a script in mass if it's based upon a certain set of devices, for sure.
Let's see here. Is there a way where we can mark that certain customers get charged automatically for labor and others do not? For example, some customers are break fix and we charge labor, others are in contract and we don't charge, but we still keep track of time. Yeah, so you would use contracts for that. So for the customers that you don't charge for that time, you'd create a contract. And what this allows you to do is override pricing for any product. So what you would do is, let's say you don't want to charge labor, but you still want to track it, you would override your labor price to be 0. And then you're still tracking all the time and everything, but they don't get charged anything for it. And then you apply that to that particular customer. Cool. God, there's so many questions. Okay, can I comment on SNMP monitoring? Yeah, we don't have it yet. Lots of people ask for it, and it's a large monster thing. I think about it almost every day. So yeah, we'll do it. We have to do it because you guys are asking for it. So we will do it, but because it's such a monster thing, there's some, I don't want to call them more basic, but there's some like more fundamental stuff that we want to add first, like service monitoring as an example. Yeah, so we will get to it. It's not happening this month. Let me put it that way.
Hi guys, under saved asset search, will options be added for missing webroot and has webroot, just like we have for Bitdefender and MCSoft? I was curious if they would show up if I had webroot integrated. Do you know, Ian?
I don't know off the top of my head.
We'd have to check on that.
Yeah, we'd have to check.
But if it's not there, I'm sure we would be adding it.
Alan says that he has it integrated and it doesn't show up. So.
Bummer. Okay, we'll bring that up to the team then. Makes sense to have that there.
Yeah. Question from Bob here. He wants to know about Windows Update reports. There are a couple reports. If you go over to the reports page here, one is the vulnerable systems report and one is the vulnerable patches report. So with vulnerable systems, you can see all the assets that have missing patches and how many of them there are. You can sort it by customer, by category, and how old the patches are. And you can schedule this to go to yourself if you want. The other thing you can do is you can go to the vulnerable patches report, which is kind of the inverse of that. You can see which KB numbers are missing on how many assets. And then if you click this, and you can sort this by customer as well. And if you click see all, it will open up a customer saved search essentially that just brings you to all of those assets. Then with this, you could do something like run a script on all of them to run Windows updates or something. So yeah.
Is there a dashboard option? Is there a dashboard option that shows hours worked per tech by day and month, billable time charged per tech day and month, uncharged by? This is a daily need.
Yeah, there's some reports for that. If you go up to the reports, the first one is the employee time clock report. So this one tells you basically who's clocking in and out over what period of time. And then there's the tech hours report, which basically tells you which tickets they're working on and whether those have been billed or not. You can get a CSV or a schedule list to go to yourself regularly, and you can sort it by date. You can also just look at particular users. If you go back, there's another report you might find useful. The tickets without charges, it's under tickets at the top right.
Oh, yes.
This one is helpful for this as well. This basically shows you all the tickets that don't have a charge on them, which can be, you can basically find money in there. So sometimes your techs just don't remember to click charge time, or they don't remember to enter any time in there. So this is a helpful report to audit like once a month or something. There's usually just money sitting in here. Yeah, so there's a lot there. Question from Scott: are there any plans for a Linux agent and patch management? I think that we need to work on the Mac agent more before we add another operating system. Frankly, we don't get that many requests for Linux agent, and having worked on Linux stuff in the past with TechSuite, one of our other products, having a Linux agent both sounds fun and really not fun. I think that's probably how all Linux people feel.
With that, is the other kind of just in regards to that, since you mentioned putting more work into the Mac agent, the question was when we'll be able to remotely control Macs.
Right. There's a big Mac OS framework we kind of have to integrate with in order to run scripts. Right now, we can't run scripts for you with the Mac agent because we haven't integrated with the MDM stuff that's in Mac OS. It's a big chunk of work. We want to do it, but that's why you can't remote into a machine with TeamViewer or Screen Connect or whatever via Syncro right now, because we can't run, we can't install things for you, basically. So we need to do this large chunk of work to integrate with some Mac OS stuff, and then we'll be able to build more features for the Mac agent. Yeah. Question here from Randy about more API docs, more docs in the API with examples. I have really good news for you, Randy. We have been working for a while on overhauling the entire API documentation. It's going to be pretty snazzy. And you'll get lots of examples, and you'll get more. We're going to expose more endpoints. It's going to be I'm pretty excited about it. It's going to be cool. So, and it was a lot of work, but I think it'll be great for people that want to write integrations for Syncro. They'll be able to write them faster because they'll be able to test stuff faster, more documentation, more endpoints. It'll be really cool. So we are working on that, and hopefully you'll see the results soon. Question from Alan: how do we classify tech hours that are not billable to the customer, but the tech will be paid for? Is there a way to classify these as internal so that they don't look like accidentally uncharged work? Any thoughts there, Crystal?
Aside from, I mean, I know you can run like the commission report, but I, it wouldn't necessarily change the way that it looks on the report being billable or not billable.
I mean, it defaults to not billable.
Unless you change it on a global account wide, then it would, I mean, you can have it automatically charge all time by default too. But read me the question one more time.
Alan, are you basically looking for expense reports? Is that kind of what it is? It's like somebody, a tech is, yeah, okay. I'll wait for Alan to respond because I think I don't totally get what he wants. In the meantime, Garth asks, I see there's a snail mail option. Does it work in Canada? No, I'm sorry. It uses USPS, so it doesn't. Are there any examples of what reports we can get with Domo in Syncro? Do we not have? We should have some like documentation or something there.
I think I think it'd be pretty valuable to have like screenshots of the different reports that are available
Are we
from
not
Domo.
already? Domo integration, Syncro. I'm looking at our KV article. Oh, it just shows how to sign in. All right, well, I'm gonna make a note to update the KB and add more screenshots because it's kind of silly.
The
Do
other
we have it
thing,
set up with the demo account?
it is, but it hasn't been since, because I think, did the global change of password. I don't think anyone's
Oh,
logged in from the demo account.
got it. Okay. Right. Yeah, Randy, we'll update the KB for Domo, and then you'll have screenshots and whatnot. Maybe we'll make a video too.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Question: will there be a better integration for SI Portal? So as far as I know, SI Portal built this on their end, so I don't know if we necessarily have any plans on our side, but maybe it might be a question on the SI Portal side. The other question from Randy, and we get this often, and I do think we'll make some improvements here where like average time to resolution honors like working hours and things like that. So I think we do have some plans on improving the dashboard with some more customizable fields and things like that. I think that's coming. Let's see. I think questions are kind of slowing down. Do you have any other ones, Ian?
Yeah, Alan clarified. He's not looking for expense reports. He's looking for a way to review tickets and not miss labor that should be billed. The uncharged labor is either on purpose, internal work, or a mistake that should be billed. Makes it a challenge at invoicing time to make sure you didn't actually accidentally miss anything. Yeah, I mean that's kind of why we have the tickets without charges. So this one, I guess you can't separate what's on purpose or not, but if I had to guess, you probably have a minority of them where it's internal work, but I could be wrong.
And I wonder if if it's internal work, if it's here and it's not charged, if like the technicians had like a note that they put like that, so you could
Uh-huh.
quickly look at this and be like, oh, it's not charged, but the notes are, it shouldn't be, it's not, it's on purpose or something, if you had it.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. I think you're looking for the pending ticket charges report, Randy, and let's
Yeah, the
see.
question from Randy was, is there a report that shows charged time that has not been invoiced?
So I believe this this pending ticket charges
Yep.
report, this would show you, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Um, let's see here. All right. Well, I think things are kind of hopefully we got through all of, there was a ton of them. So if we missed your questions, much apologies. Feel free to shoot us an email. Our support team is amazing. So you can email help@syncromsp.com. So again, sorry if we missed any of your questions, or if you have feature requests, that's the same email address to use. But we just want to say thank you so much for hanging out with us. This is always, Ian and I really enjoy doing these.
Yeah, they're fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.